Hello, Pixel here, and tonight I have some shoot 'em up comfort food for you in the form of Habroxia 2. This game kind of falls into a bunch of really interesting categories because while it is a shoot 'em up game, a lot of shoot 'em up games today try to do the same angle, and that is ultra hard, bullet hell, things coming at you everywhere, and you have to be very skilled to do well in the game. Habroxia 2, however, is a nostalgic shoot 'em up, but at the same time kind of feels like a game with a little bit of a training wheels mentality. This is because Habroxia 2 has a mechanic where you can buy upgrades for your ship and then play the same levels over and over again. This allows you to grind in the game, so when you run into a level where you're having a difficult time and you can't get through the boss or can't get through the level, you can just play old levels, upgrade your ship for a while, and then continue on through the game. The great thing about this is that for anyone that's not exactly a twitchy gamer but still remembers shoot 'em up games from their past, they can play Habroxia 2 and still feel right at home. You can still see that success as you play the game. You'll be able to beat the game, and it won't be that difficult. The downside, of course, to this is that for anybody that is a twitchy shoot 'em up player looking for that next great challenge, you're not really going to find it in Habroxia 2. That is at least until the end of the game. I've taken my time with this particular game and I've gone through the entire thing and I've seen what I think is everything there is to see. After you complete the game, and this one is about 3 or 4 hours long, it opens up 3 new modes for you to play. One is a mode where you have your boosters on the entire time and you're just flying through a level with no enemies, trying to dodge the walls as it goes super fast. One is a boss rush mode where you have to beat all of the bosses. And then one is a New Game Plus mode where you have to go through all the levels again, but everything is much more difficult. One of the criticisms I had with this game overall was how the difficulty curve was implemented overall. In the very beginning of the game, when you first start playing, you are near powerless and you have to grind a little bit just to see that early success in the game. However, by the end of my first playthrough, I was just blasting everything away. I was just walking through bosses. It was a very, very easy game, which made the difficulty curve backwards. The game should be getting more difficult as you go through, but because of the way the power scaling works in this game, it tends to get easier as you get further in the game. The one caveat to this was that New Game Plus mode. When you get to the New Game Plus mode, there is a drastic jump in difficulty on your second playthrough. That was welcomed by me. In fact, I found playing the first level on New Game Plus to be very exciting after walking through the boss of the game. Habroxia 2's gameplay from one level to the next is pretty familiar for most shoot 'em up players. You are on a two-dimensional plane, you're flying through, and you're going to shoot at enemies while you dodge their bullets. The enemy variation is pretty good, but about midway through the game they stop introducing new enemies, and the gameplay does get a little bit flatter on the second half of the game. The level design overall, though, is fairly good, even though I found them to be repeating a number of patterns again in the second half of the game, but that was still exciting and still passable in my opinion. One of the interesting innovations they have here, though, is the layout for how you select levels. The player is given a world map where once you conquer one level, it opens up new levels and you can branch out by finding new paths in previous levels to find new bosses and new areas that are on that map. As you go down these paths, eventually you will come to a final boss of that tree branch. Beating that boss ends up in a dead end, and you actually have to go through all of the tree and beat all of the bosses before you get to encounter the final boss. The boss design overall in Habroxia 2 is pretty well done. There are 20-some different bosses and each one is very unique. There are some design elements between one or two that are very similar, but overall they've gone out of their way big time to definitely present different bosses for the player. I do have 2 caveats to my opinion on the bosses though. And the first is the power scaling issue that I had previously mentioned does impact the later game bosses, particularly on that first run through. Some of the bosses, before you even really start to understand their patterns, they're dead. And this is a function of if you've over leveled before you get to them. The other thing that I really had reservations about was the final boss. It is really underwhelming overall to fight a boss that is not any more difficult than anything else that you've fought up to that point. There is no real phase changes that you run into. There is no grandeur that is presented with that final boss. It's still a decent boss, but coming from these nostalgia games, these NES and Super NES games, the games that this game is meant to be like, it really sets the tone that that's what a boss fight is like, and Habroxia 2 is just missing that. One of the interesting innovations in Habroxia 2 is the control scheme for the game. The left stick moves your ship as it would in any two-dimensional shooter, but the right stick operates kind of like a twin-stick shooter, where you get to shoot all around your ship by just moving the right stick around. Then you have two different guns. You have your primary gun, that's the right stick, but you also have a secondary gun that can fire both in front and behind your ship as a secondary fire mechanism. Now for both the front and back guns, you're able to assign different secondary weapons to those. They have to charge up, but once they're at full power, they can do a significant amount of damage themselves. There are also item pickups that you can get in the game as you're playing through and killing enemies. Now these can manifest in different ways, defensive and offensive. You can get shields, you can get these little orb guys that also function as shields, but they spin around your ship. You can get bombs, which blow up everything in the screen, and you can get lasers, which will shoot a huge laser all up and down and through walls, and those are very, very effective against the bosses. Finally, there's also a boost mechanic that they've implemented in this game that allows you to become invulnerable for a very short period of time, and you can rush through things like certain walls and enemies, and for the enemies, you'll actually damage them. This mechanic I found I didn't use quite as often, particularly in the beginning of the game. However, in some niche cases in the game, like one particular boss, it did come in very useful. For me though, the one standout piece of this game that honestly blew my mind was the music. I loved the music and the sound effects so much in this game because it reached right into my childhood and slapped that kid square in the face. There are some serious Mega Man vibes that are going on with this soundtrack, and a lot of the sound effects just feel like they were lifted straight out of the NES area and plopped down right in 2021. The entire sound design across the board is extremely impressive, and it really functions in what this game is trying to do, and that's revitalize that nostalgic feeling within you. Here, with the sound effects, absolutely they've done that. So who's this game for, and is it worth buying? This game is for nostalgic gamers that like to play shoot-'em-ups but are tired of the bullet hell games that are out there right now. Those games are really twitchy and very difficult, and this one allows you to grind and take your time and relax. If you're a veteran of those shoot-'em-up games and you're not okay with something that's on the easier side, this one might not be for you. But for the rest of you shoot-'em-up fans, this one's a fairly good game. It might not be Skyforce Reloaded, and there might not be dozens upon dozens of gameplay hours in this game, but the time that I spent was definitely worth it, and especially if you find this one on sale, it totally gets my endorsement. If you are interested in finding out about more great games that for some reason or another fly under the radar, then take a look at some of my other videos, and if you liked those, then consider subscribing. Thanks for hanging out with me, and until next time, this has been Pixel.